One, two, 3, 4. Hey guys, it's Danielle, and so today, upon massive request, I'm finally doing a baking video. So today I decided I would do something super simple because I know a lot of people seem to think I'm like good at baking, but in reality I honestly just pick the easiest recipes that'll look the nicest. And seeing that today is Good Friday and this weekend is Easter, I thought I would do something that is Easter themed. There are elements of this recipe that I actually have shown on my channel before, so I'll definitely be putting some links and things in this video for you guys to go check out as well. But yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? Today we are going to be making some cupcakes because I feel like everyone loves cupcakes and they're so simple to make. I like to use the Betty Crocker mixes. I'm going to cut to a clip of what you need for this recipe right now. The Betty Crocker mixes. This one is Devil's Food and they're so easy to make. On the back they tell you exactly what to do and they tell you the ingredients that you need. So I'm going to preheat my oven for 350 degrees. And while my oven is preheating, I'm going to start on our cupcakes. So I'm going to be making today these chocolate cupcakes with really cute little Easter nests on the top. They are honestly adorable and such a huge hit. Every year that I've made them, people always rave about them because they're so simple and so good. So I'm going to have that in there. You can honestly start adding all the rest of your ingredients without really worrying about the order that they go into. I know for many recipes, usually if you were making a cake from scratch, you'd start with your wet ingredients first and then add your dry as you go. But when it comes to box mixes, you can kind of just throw it all in at the same time and you don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to add in, I have 3 eggs here. I'm going to add those in first. If you're not used to cracking eggs, I'd recommend that you do this in a separate bowl because I know that many of us tend to get shells in our mix, which obviously is not ideal. We really want that extra crunch. And then I have a ½ cup of oil here, just regular vegetable oil, nothing special. And then I also have a 1 1/4 cup milk here. I'm just going to dump that in. You could also use water, but I like using the milk because it's richer. And I'm just going to give that a good mix. And once we are happy with the mix, now it's all combined, I'm going to get a cupcake tin. So this tin I've already pre-lined. And these are just super cheap little liners. You can get them honestly anywhere, and especially during times like right now, I would recommend getting the ones from Walmart because they're super cheap and I mean they get the job done. You don't need anything super special. So I'm now going to take this measuring cup here. I would usually use 1/4 cup, but I have seemed to have lost it at the moment, so I'm going to use this ½ cup measure and try to put just about the same amount of batter into each cupcake. You want to fill them to about halfway. You don't want to get them too full because they do rise, and the last thing you want is them spilling over the edges. Out any air bubbles. We do want these to bake pretty evenly. Obviously they're going to rise with all the leavening agents in them, but getting out those bubbles is what I have always been recommended to do. So I'm going to recommend it to you as well. So I'm just giving it a little tap and then they're ready to go in the oven. I do have a little bit of extra batter, so I'm going to fill this cupcake pan as well. But for what we need today, for the means of this video and the toppings and things, I wanted to just make a dozen. So I'm going to tap these, pop them in the oven, and we are going to wait for 14 to 19 minutes until they come out clean with a toothpick. This is another thing I love. They just tell you exactly the time. Super easy, no guessing games. So I'm going to pop these in the oven and we can move on to our next step. Okay, now for our second step, these are going to be the little toppers for our Easter cupcakes. Now this is a recipe that I have done before, so if you want to see a more, I guess, video specific on how to make these, then feel free to go watch that. I'll link that right now. But for the time being, I'm going to give you kind of a little quick run through on how I make these little Easter nests for the top of our cupcakes. So first off, I'm going to go over to a clip of the ingredients that you'll need right now. So starting off, I'm going to be using my chocolate chips. I decided to use half semi-sweet, half milk chocolate because I feel like it gives a better balance. Now I used about, I think, a cup of semi-sweet and a little over a cup of milk chocolate. In the video that I linked, I believe that I used 2 bags, so I was thinking that this is hopefully at least close to the equivalent. Now because I'm putting these on top of cupcakes, I'm going to try to make them a little bit thinner than the ones that I made in my other video, because the other video you just eat them straight as they are, because they're obviously super delicious on their own. But for little toppers, I'm going to try to make them a little thinner if this does not make as much as the original video. So I'm going to pop these in this microwave safe bowl. And I'm going to pop these in the microwave at 30 seconds at a time until they are nice and melted. You don't want to seize your chocolate, so you don't want to get them too hot too fast. So I'm going to do them 30 seconds at a time, give them a little mix in between, and then once they are nice and smooth, we can move on and add our shredded wheat. Okay, so now that we have our beautiful, shiny, smooth chocolate, I'm going to start adding in my shredded wheat. Now the shredded wheat is key to get that really authentic kind of nest texture. You can obviously use other cereals if you don't have shredded wheat on hand, but for this recipe I would recommend shredded wheat specifically because of its texture. And so I'm just going to kind of keep adding as I go until I feel like I have enough chocolate to cereal ratio. Now this is very similar to whenever you're making Rice Krispies. I don't know if you guys tend to follow a recipe for Rice Krispies, but I know in our family we always just kind of eyeball it, and you just keep adding cereal until you feel like the marshmallow to cereal ratio is good. So this is kind of the same idea. So I have my little muffet here. I'm just going to take this and kind of crumble it in my hands, and this is how you get that like twiggy texture instead of just big muffets covered in chocolate. Or I keep calling them muffets, big shredded wheat covered in chocolate. You're going to get more of a nest texture by breaking them apart. So right now I'm at about 5 little squares of shredded wheat, and I actually think you're at a pretty okay consistency. So I have another lined cupcake pan here, and I'm going to be taking about a tablespoon, maybe a touch more, kind of figure it out as I go. So I'm going to take a little bit of my chocolate, can you see it in camera here? Okay. And I'm going to pop that into a little cupcake liner, and I'm going to try to press towards the outside, just creating a little cup shape or nest shape. And we want to make sure that there is a pretty decent little divot in the middle because we are going to be filling these with mini eggs. You want to make sure there's enough space in there to hold the eggs. So okay, so now that my little nests are done, I'm going to pop these in the fridge, and once they are nice and cool, they'll be ready for whenever we get on to our decorating. I have left my cupcakes on a cooling rack so that they will be nice and cool, but for now I'm going to pop these in the fridge and we will get on to making our icing. So now for our icing. This is the last thing that we are going to actually make for our cupcakes. So this is something that is kind of hard to explain because I make icing off the top of my head. Icing is honestly one of the easiest things to make. I promise that this recipe is super simple and anybody can do it. So right now I have some salted butter. So you can use salted or unsalted butter. It's totally up to personal preference. Unsalted butter will give you a more kind of creamy and light icing, whereas the salted butter will give you a sweeter icing. So I'm using salted butter solely because it is what we have thawed right now. I do personally prefer the unsalted butter, but most of the time I end up using salted. It isn't a huge deal. I have had no complaints when using salted butter. So I'm just going to take my spatula and start putting in some butter. And you want to make sure that you have room temperature butter because otherwise it will not cream properly. I'm thinking I usually use around a cup. I'm gonna call that a cup for the moment. And once I start to blend that, we want it to get to a really creamy texture. You can blend it as much as you'd like. If you want a really light frosting, then make sure to mix it or blend it longer. But for my purposes, I'm just going to mix it until I see that it's a good texture because I'm going to be coloring my frosting. So I'm going to turn that on to maybe 2 or 4 on my mix. So once it is a creamy texture, I'm now going to add my vanilla, and this is roughly a teaspoon of vanilla. It's not a huge deal if you go a little overboard because vanilla is such just like a generally good flavor. So I'm going to mix that in as well. And I'm going to turn this off in a second. We are going to slowly add in our icing sugar as the mixer mixes. So I'm going to stop talking right now and start adding icing sugar. And we're looking for a kind of smooth, not super thick, but also not super thin consistency. In order to help it out, you can add cream or milk to help loosen it, or simply add a little bit more butter if you think you went too overboard with your icing sugar. Icing sugar, it can handle a lot. The butter can handle a lot of icing sugar, so don't be worried if you use almost an entire bag of icing sugar because that can be expected. So I'm going to get my cream out just to kind of help loosen this up as I go. But yeah, and we're just going to mix and add icing sugar, a little bit of cream, icing sugar, until we get the texture that we want. Okay, so now I'm going to color my icing, and I'm just using the juniper green coloring from Wilton's Cakes icing or food coloring. Now a little goes a long way with this stuff, so I'm trying to not use too much because I do kind of want a pastel green color. So we'll see how this goes. And then I'll just give this a good mix. You can do this in the mixer as well. Okay, so now that I have my icing to the color that I want, it's just a very light pastel green color. I'm going to use my spatula again and put this into a piping bag. Now you don't have to put it in a piping bag, you can simply use a knife and put it on top of your cupcakes, but I think that a piping bag is fun. So I'm using this Wilton tip in 366, and it is used to do detailing to make leaves. I'm just going to fill this icing bag. Okay, and now that I've filled my icing bag, I'm going to give it a little shake to get out any air bubbles. And once we have done that, I'm just going to twist the top. Now I made this very full, and I'm going to set this aside, and it will be ready to go for when our cupcakes have cooled. I'm going to let them cool for the next maybe 20 minutes to a half hour, and then we will get to decorating. Okay, so it's been roughly half an hour, and I have all the things that we need in order to assemble our cupcakes. I have our little nests that have been sitting in the fridge, and we will unwrap those in a moment. But for now, I'm going to start icing our cupcakes. So I have my green frosting here ready in my piping bag, and I'm just going to twist the top to the best of my ability. It's very full, and I'm going to make sure that all the pressure is coming from the top of the bag and not from the middle, because then it'll just squirt out the end and make a big mess. because it has this kind of V shape, I'm going to be using it sideways as if the mouth is coming to eat at you. And I'm going to grab my cupcakes and work from the inside out, creating little leaf patterns. This way it kind of looks similar to a tree, like your nest is sitting in a tree of some sort. Now I'm going to move on to my nests. So these nests have been in the fridge ever since we finished them. They have just been sitting in there, getting nice and set up. So right now I'm going to take them all out of their casings and just pop them on a plate so that we can use them to decorate our cupcakes. Okay, so now we have our beautiful little decorated cupcakes. Take one of these, pop it on our little display, grab a nest that we'll just place right on top. Now you could use, if you find that your icing is a little bit too loose, you could use a toothpick just through the center to kind of hold it all together. I think mine should be fine. We'll soon find out, but I'm just going to now add some little eggs in the top, and that is how we assemble. And I'm going to continue to do this for all the rest. These are so super cute and a huge hit when it comes to Easter because they seem so complicated when honestly they're really easy to put together. It seemed like a lot of steps, but definitely worthwhile for sure. There you have it. These are our really cute and absolutely delicious Easter cupcakes. We have our little nests, our mini eggs, and our yummy soft chocolate cakes. I really hope you guys liked this video, and I really hope you do try this at home. I would love to see it. Don't forget to tag me if you have tried these. I would love to see. Don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and comment down below what you'd like to see next. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Bye! I can't reach it. Bye! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to eat these. Yum!